Alright, so we're talking catfish prep. So to this point, what we've done with our catfish fillets, when a recipe calls for that, we just serve the whole fillet on the plate. The problem with that is our catfish fillets range anywhere from 3 to 5 ounces. So for a dish like a Bayou catfish, we're putting anywhere from 9 to 15 ounces of catfish on a plate. Big old range makes it really hard to track waste, and if the catfish fillets are on the heavier side, we're giving away a lot of extra product. So what we're going to do is we're going to switch to trimming our fillets so that each fillet that goes on the plates is a much smaller range, 3.25 to 3.75 ounce range, and make sure we're not giving away that extra product. The other thing we're going to do with this is we're going to use those trimmings for either catfish strips, or if they're smaller than our mandated weight for catfish strips, then we're going to portion those into catfish portions that we'll use for our po' boys. So let's take a look at how we're going to do this. So the recipe will reflect exactly what we're doing here, and the first things first, we're going to measure, or we're going to weigh out our catfish fillet. So we'll see we're starting with a 4.65 ounce fillet. Again, we want to get that to 3.5. We're allowing a range of 3 1/4 to 3 3/4. So we're going to make one cut here on this fillet, and we're going to do it by starting at the middle. Notice that the thicker part of the fillet is on my left hand side. I'm going to cut right from the middle at a strong bias cut. Strong or heavy bias means greater than a 45-degree angle. And we're just going to make one trim from the center to the edge of the catfish fillet. Now with practice and repetition, our prep cook should get very good at cutting the right amount of this. It will take a little bit of work to begin with, but that's all we're looking at doing is trimming off one edge. We're going to weigh that fillet again and make sure we're in our 3.25 to 3.75 ounce range. So this fillet is good to go now. Now what do we do with this strip? We're going to weigh this. If it's between 1.4 and 1.6 ounces, we will do a little wiggle room there. But between 1.4 and 1.6, we'll use it for a catfish strip. So that'll work for a catfish strip. Anything less, we're going to set it aside to use as catfish portions. So let's do another fillet. The recipe will read that the first 5 fillets that are being prepped like this do need to be measured like we just done. After that, the prep cook should have a decent idea of the starting weight just by a look. I can look at this one right now and see that is not nearly as heavy as the other one, but I'm going to weigh this and I'm going to see it's at 3.5. Already within our range. I don't have to do anything with that. Goes with my other fillet. So that's how it'll work with the catfish fillets. We're going to start with our starting weight. We're going to trim to 3.25 to 3.75. Use that trimming depending on how heavy it is for either catfish strips or catfish portions. Now you are not going to get enough catfish strips just by trimming the fillets, so you will need to cut strips from fillets. Here's how we're going to do that. So again, starting with a whole fillet, we're going to weigh that out. We're starting at 4.25 ounces. Now again, our ideal weight for strips is 1.4 to 1.6. So do a quick little math. 4.2, we should be able to get 3 1.4 ounce strips out of this. Now of course, looking at a fillet, you see this side is much thicker, much longer than this side. So you can't just cut it right down the middle like that because you're going to get uneven portions. So we're going to cut fillets that we're cutting into strips. We're going to cutting at a bias. Maybe about 30 degrees is where we're going for that, but cutting at an angle so that you're using equal weights. And again, there is a little bit of wiggle room here, but we're looking for some decent length is the other reason why we're cutting at an angle. And we should even out the weight on these. So 1.45, looking good there. 1.25, I would be willing to let that go. Again, we got a little bit of wiggle room on that. 1.5. So again, with some practice, our prep cooks are going to get really good at this and know exactly how these need to be cut. So that's going to go in our strips. If you've got a lighter fillet like we do here, 3.25, we could use that for a fillet, but if we need to be cutting that into a strip, we know this one, because it's 3.2, is only going to give us 2 strips. We want to cut it in half. Again, we're not going to cut it at this half, because this side's going to be all heavy and this side's going to be light. So we're going to cut it at an angle, make sure we've got some good length on either one, and we should be right about even on both of these. 1.3, a little light, but we're within that range. And this should be about 1.9. Okay, so here's a good example. We're all the way at 2 ounces on this one. Too heavy to use for a strip, so I'm going to trim off a tiny bit more. I'm now good to go with that one, with that 1.3. And this little piece right here, because it's too small for a strip, I'm going to use that as a catfish portion. Mindset being, catfish portions, it's 4 ounces. You're going to do a 1 portion for a half pull buoy, 2 portions for a whole pull buoy. Even if the pieces are a little bit smaller, the guests are still getting the same amount of weight, and it's just more pieces of catfish, so the value perception increases there as well. Again, the recipes list all this out very clearly. Just wanted to give a visual representation of what the recipes are showing. This will begin on Wednesday, August 15th, along with our new menu. Thank you.